All right, cool. So like I was just about to say, we're getting into section 31. So this is our introduction to time series. And so just kind of a heads up is that our project will be on time series. So I think, yeah, tomorrow, because we moved our study group to tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. So can you guys make that thumbs up if you, I just only 2 of you guys, but it's on the calendar now. So I'll just kind of share
Sorry,
this.
it's tomorrow at 5?
Yes, I believe so. I'm trying to do the conversion in my head.
Okay, and so is that in lieu of the Friday at 6 for now on, or is that just this week?
At least for this week, I was going to ask you guys, especially, I was hoping that more people, well, I thought Eric and Adam would be here too. But we can change it to that. I was going to put out a poll, say what time works well for us so we can make sure this is a time that we can always have in schedule. And that way you guys can definitely attend it. But does at least tomorrow at 5 p.m. work well for people?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the reason why I say that is because I will actually introduce the project tomorrow then. And I'll basically walk through and say, these are the requirements of the project. This is what it looks like. You'll have a new part where it's like on your curriculum, your end of module project. And that way you guys can see it too. What I'll do is deploy it out today so you guys can take a look at it at least. But we'll go over it a little bit, like say, these are the requirements, this is the README. And so we can answer questions about the project itself. Okay, sound good? Cool. And then we'll also go into section 32, which is a continuation of time series. All right. So let me go ahead and, oops, I realized I have things that are open that are not saved. No, I have the wrong things open. Let's see here. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen. And the good news is that this stuff on the GitHub repo with the notebooks, this is all underneath time series. I realized earlier today is that I might not actually have, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find your guys' window. So I can see your guys' faces, there you are. All right, so one thing I noticed is that I didn't upload some of these notebooks. We're gonna talk about specifically time series intro, modeling trends. These are the stuff that we're going to talk about. This should all be on GitHub, but if not, it'll be uploaded soon. So just kind of be aware of this, okay? And so this section is going to be a lot of new stuff. I know Lucy really likes time series from her project and everything like that. So hopefully you all will like this a lot. So let me go ahead and, nope, that is not the right one. Time series intro, cool. All right, and I like to minimize this so it's easier to read. Oh, nope, there we go. And we'll go restart. Okay, so time series data in general, as you can probably guess what a time series is basically a series of time-related data points. Simple enough, right? So some classic, time series information would be like stock market. So this is very typical when we talk about time series. Another part might be something like one classic one that I see a lot is like, something related to like the climate. So temperature change or like something that's over like a year period or something, some kind of like repetition going through. Also, like I said, like the stock market, sales prices, things like this, things that you can notice. So it's basically any kind of data that where the sense of time is the important focus of that data. So basically think of it like the temporal information is that key focus. And this is important to notice because it's not necessarily time itself. Like time itself could be a feature, or it can in a sense be like the actual index of the data. And so that's kind of the difference between time series versus like something that just has temporal information in it. Basically the time series is like, oh, the important aspect is the actual time it occurs versus just saying, oh, this is when it's sold. And a lot of information, what's it called? A lot of data can be taken into time series if there's temporal information. So for example, back in our project one, we had predicting house prices. Well, in that data set, we also had what day or the month or something along those lines, when was the house sold? That could be potentially used as a time series data, okay? Now, not everything can be necessarily viewed in that way, but sometimes it's useful in this way. And time series is where that's the main key focus of the data. So again, examples, stock prices, temperature of the year, atmospheric changes over the course of decades. So this is where you might have some kind of change over time. And usually we'll see the ones that are most interesting are things that have some kind of like cyclic, period of, how things change over time, okay? So a lot of the stuff I'm about to show is very similar to what, what's it called? The curriculum shows. So just kind of know it's like, it'll be like a slight different flavor of that. A lot of the stuff is like literally directly from the curriculum. So that way you're kind of familiar as you're walking through it, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to load a CSV, right? So in this case, it's at the minimum temperature. And just to kind of quickly show what this looks like, oops, I have to actually run my imports first. And you can see here, here's our data. It's a very simple CSV in this case. You can see here, basically there's two columns. There's the date itself and basically this daily min. I believe this is supposed to be temperature. So again, exactly what this data is doesn't really matter in this case with what we're talking about. I'm just kind of showing an example, but you can think of it like the minimum temperature in a certain area on this like dates, in this case, this month. So you can think of like, oh, January 1st, 1981, the daily minimum temperature was 20.7. Let's say degrees Celsius or something like that, or that's probably too hot, probably like, Fahrenheit. But anyway, so the point is that you can see like this, what's it called? The data is mostly focused on, oh, I even did this wrong. See, it's important to read this right. You can see here is that this is probably January is the month right here. And this is the day itself. So it's the day, month, year. And you can see it goes for almost a whole month here. You can see that temperature change, okay? So this is just loading in, just checking it out. Like, okay, cool. And you can see here, the main focus, I mean, there's only two columns. The main focus here is that date, okay? But we could have multiple columns even, all right? So I read that data in, and then now what I'm gonna do is basically say, all right, let's go ahead and actually create a proper date time. So as you can tell, like I got really confused about like what exactly this is. This is a little, like once you see enough points, you can get a feel for it. But if I had just seen this one right here, I might think this is month, day, year, especially because I'm American. So I think like, month first. If you're British, you might think of it differently. Also, what's really confusing, if this was something like 1911 or 2011, and this was 11 on here, that might be really confusing. It's like, is this month, day, year, what is this kind of thing? So we're gonna make it into a nice date time. So what's nice is, what's it called? Pandas actually has a built-in function called toDateTime, okay? And so we're just passing in specifically the date of the date column, and we're formatting it in this way. In this case, we're saying, oh, this is the day, this is the month, and this is the year. And that's basically just saying, this is the format that we expect. It's gonna be the day first, / the month, / the year. And this formatting right here, just so you know, is pretty universal for dates and stuff. You can probably search this as a, format for date time, and you will find this %D, %D, depending on what you're looking at. It can also be like what day of the week it is. There's all these different aspects. But the important part is I'm basically taking this information in and say, all right, convert this into a formal date time. So Pandas will be able to handle this. And you can see here, I also make the date the main focus. So remember, in this case, we're talking about time series. So our temporal information should be the focus of our actual data. So I'm saying, all right, set index, because right now, real quick, this part right here, if you guys haven't noticed, hopefully it's not news to you guys, but this is actually our index. And by default, when we reload or load our information from a CSV and there's no index, the index will just be made up. Basically, this is a new index of 0, 1, 2, 3, just counting down. So we want to set this like, well, we don't want just it being a data point, like the first data point. There's actually information of being that the date itself. So we're going to set that as the index, okay? And you can now see here is that we'll have a true date time, and you'll see here that that index in Pandas and Jupyter Notebook, it actually highlights it like this with its default default CSS, basically the default way it presents stuff. And basically, so you can see here, we have a true date time, okay? So, and you can see here on our type, we actually have daily min and date index, here it is. So you can see here, it actually shows what that range is. So we don't have just a string now, we have a special type of object. Okay.
Sorry, just to clarify, so you want, since it's temporal data and it's already like a point in time, that's why you're setting the index as that date?
That's
Like
right.
not, so it's not just a data point it's just like a date itself is already an index.
Yeah, and this allows us to, the reason why I'm setting an index, you technically don't have to, but setting that index basically tells the data frame, it's like, hey, this is the important aspect of how we want to index, basically count each data point. It's really about that time is the important part, and then all the rest of the info is on the side. So for example, if you had for each data point, maybe there was like this day and then like, 1 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning, that date time would still be your index. So you can actually say, okay, this
Yeah.
is an aspect.
Would you do that for, like, what if you're working with a data frame that has a lot more information and date is just one of the variables? Would you always set it as the index? Even
Not
like if, okay.
Mhm. Sorry, no, go ahead, keep on.
Like if your analysis is on multiple things and maybe sometimes you're not including date in that analysis, would it make sense not to set it as an index there then?
Right, yeah. This is kind of like an extra step that kind of like helps us like remind us, well, first remind us that this data, the important aspect of it is the date. And also allows us to kind of quickly, like when we reference the data, we don't have to worry about like what's the index. The unique aspect is that date time. But if
Okay.
you had other data set that had temporal information, you wouldn't necessarily have to put it, that date as your index.
Okay.
Okay, cool. All right, good question. Anything else? All right, awesome. Cool. And just the big part I would just say focus on is this date time, is making sure we convert, like essentially this is just a string. If you look at it carefully, this non-null object, this is just a string right here. And we want it not a string, we want it to be an actual, time, right? A date time. And that's why we're able to convert it like this way. Okay. So now we go into slicing our time series. So now if we actually want, this is the beauty of actually putting in, what's it called? Our index and then also converting to a date time, I can actually call with this data frame right here, right? I can call say 1990 and afterwards. So now it knows, oh, only count for the stuff that's after 1990. So you can see here is that it automatically knew. I didn't have to put in 1901 or try to figure out, how do I slice this in a certain way? By making it a date time, I can actually use this specific notation right here. So it makes it really convenient. Okay. So unless you're, again, this kind of little follow-up kind of touch on this. Why do you make this date? Why do you make the date as the index? It basically is specifying, hey, this is specifically date time or time series information. This is temporal information. This is very important. This is the thing that we're indexing off of. So this kind of shows the importance of saying, hey, this is the thing that we care about. And so that means all operations will be based around the time itself versus it just being another feature. All right. Cool. So cool. Nice to see some numbers, but fun stuff is when we start visualizing it, right? So the first thing we're going to do is like, okay, let's go and start to visualize this. Cause like you can get this whole information. Like if I really wanted to, right, I could just do like, what do we call it? DF temp and see that whole information. Like, oh, cool. They're numbers. Ooh, tells you nothing, right? Like I love numbers, but it's hard to read them. It's not easy to get information. And this is where we can use our visual cortex, right? And our human brain to be able to pull this information out. And so this is what we're going to look at now.